Jasmine Crockett weighs in on the recent Karmelo Anthony trial and sentencing. Then, Donald Trump says that the Iran war could be over in a matter of days. And finally, JD Vance weighs in on how this entire war could be not even talked about within a year. Welcome to Suit and Tie Conservative. First of all, top of the show, we have Jasmine Crockett weighing in on the Karmelo Anthony trial. If you don't know, Karmelo Anthony was a guy who, we'll see what Jasmine Crockett says about him, but he was a guy, 17, who stabbed another 17-year-old, killed him, and has now been sentenced by a jury of peers to 35 years in prison, of which, because of some random Texas law or something like that, he'll be serving about half of, and then the rest, I would assume he's going to be on parole or something like that. Anyways, so we'll roll the tape. Let's see what Jasmine Crockett has to say about this individual, shall we?
But it's my understanding that Karmelo ended up stabbing. He ended up hitting Austin one time, and it was about where he hit him. One time, 2 inches. This wasn't someone who said, hey, let me stab you 5, 6, 7 times. And so when you're looking at the punishment range, there's a reason in Texas that it goes from 5 to 99 or life, because you are looking at how intentional, like how bad was this? 35 years for a kid who had decided to go under a tent that was not his team's tent as it was raining, and simply didn't want to be put out in the rain by some random kid that he didn't know who was larger than him. Listen, a lot of people don't know what it is to live as a black person in this country, but just like...
Well, unfortunately, I certainly don't know what it is like to live in this country as a black person, but what I do know is what actually happened in the case, unlike what she's saying. There are a couple things that she has a little bit mixed up, but let's look at, like she was saying, the case, it goes, like she was saying, from 5 years to 99 or life or something like that. But the question is, how intentional was it? And that kind of decides how severe the punishment will be in a just court, of course. So let's look at what actually happened in the case. I'll describe it to you, and let's see how intentional it was. So, Karmelo Anthony was at a school athletics event, specifically a track meet. He enters a tent of Metcalf's team, and they get into an altercation, more an argument, according to witnesses. And Anthony repeatedly is trying to escalate this situation. He's like, "Ooh, fight me, bro. Let's go." This is a direct quote. He says, "Touch me, see what happens." Right? So pretty interesting. Austin Metcalf, very, very dissimilarly, he says, "I don't want to fight you at a track meet, dude." That's a direct quote. Which really puts it into perspective. You realize, like, yeah, track meets aren't really where you expect to have someone, stabbed and, brutally executed, or really just have to have fights break out in general, especially severe ones like this. But, back to what happened. Eventually, Anthony took out a knife and stabbed Austin, leaving a gaping hole in Austin's chest, according to, of course, witnesses, and I believe there was specifically a medic there who examined him, and there was this gaping hole from the knife. Anthony then runs, tosses the knife, and is arrested. By the way, as the prosecutor of the case pointed out, if this was self-defense, as many, including it seems like Jasmine Crockett, are touting, why did he throw away the knife? Why did he ditch it, right? But then, moreover, this is the chilling part, okay? While being arrested, an officer referred to him as an alleged suspect, pretty standard language, and he said, and this is a direct quote, this is according to the New York Post, "I'm not alleged, I did it." Now, it may be a little bit of poor English here, but that's okay. It's pretty clear he's literally confessing to the crime. He's saying, "No, I did it," right after doing it. I mean, like, if you've ever read Crime and Punishment, Raskolnikov, he murders someone in cold blood, and then he's, like, panicked after it. There's this, like, intense regret, panic, all this. And I think that's a normal response to have. To be panicked about it and to regret it. No, he said, I'm not alleged. I did it. Let's fight me, bro. Like, it's so interesting to look at this. I think that there must be, like, this cultural difference where Carmelo Anthony's like, fight me. We're at a track meet. This is where we fight each other. This is where we beat each other to a pulp. And then Austin Metcalf, he's like, no, I don't want to fight you, bro. That's not what I'm here for, right? So it's fascinating. But, Jasmine, I hope that helps clears things up. It seems to my shrewd eyes, based on these facts that I have on this card, that it was very intentional. And while I may not know what it's like to live as a black person in this country, I certainly do know that is what we call murder. And it was very intentional. But interestingly enough, she goes on in the same TMZ interview. She's asked this. So you think race played a role in the verdict? And she says, this is a direct quote, "Oh my God, I know Collin County, so absolutely." That's end quote. So she says, absolutely, not even like within a shadow of the doubt, maybe. No, absolutely, that's what happened. Well, that's an interesting claim. She's saying that basically the verdict was racism, is what she's saying. She's saying it's an open shut case of racism. Based on the facts that I just read to you and all the things that I know, I can tell you it was not an open shut case of racism. It was an open shut case of brutal murder. This Carmelo Anthony, he stabs Austin Metcalf, penetrating his heart. It doesn't matter how many times he stabbed. One is enough for murder. Okay. It's an open shut case of murder. The race isn't involved. I mean, even the prosecution and the defense during the case was like, no, race isn't an issue here. Austin Metcalf's father goes on the news. He says race isn't the issue of this case. It's not like that, right? Because it isn't. It's so simple. It's just murder. But I will say there are some claims that are not entirely unsubstantiated that race could have played a role. So according to Forbes, this is what they say. On Thursday, Andrew Anthony questioned if the outcome of the trial would have been the same if his son had not been tried by an all-white jury. But they also acknowledge reporting suggests that there were several minorities on the jury, just coincidentally no black people. Now, the black people were struck from the jury list by the prosecutors because they were educators. If you don't know, prosecutors, actually both sides, are able to basically pick which jury members they want to a certain extent, and they can, reject certain ones. And they rejected them on the valid grounds that they were educators that might either be too lenient or too hard. I don't really know which one, but that's kind of how it works. Either too lenient or too hard on the defendant and in the trial and the sentencing. So that's what we can see. The jury here is, while there are no black people, it is racially diverse. And here's what's important. While, I suppose an Indian or something may not know exactly what it is like to live as a black person in America, they certainly know what it's like to live as a minority in America. So if there were an argument that were based on the idea that I am a minority and I'm scared of this majority, or I'm scared of this system, or whatever, stuff like that, that would basically come to this, it would basically support her claim of absolutely racism is at play here. Then there would have been jury members that would support it. But no, after only 3 hours, the jury comes out with a unanimous ruling, again from a diverse jury, a unanimous ruling that he is guilty. So no, actually, it wouldn't have been different. Because race isn't an issue. It's just wrong that it was an all-white jury, but there were minorities in it that if there were claims that were based on minorities, there could have been support for it, right? But no, it's a unanimous ruling against it because this isn't, as I said earlier, it isn't an open-shut case of racism. It's an open-shut case of murder at a track meet with a knife. Okay? That's it, right? It's not more complicated than that. So I would say to Jasmine Crockett, yes, this is proportional. In fact, if anything, I could argue that it's not proportional in that it's too little of a sentencing because it's outright murder that was unprovoked. But it was very intentional. The sentencing is just, at the very least, in how much it is. And finally, race was not at play here. It just wasn't. Now, switching gears a little bit to the Iran conflict. We might actually come out of the Iran quagmire that we have found ourselves in. This is Donald Trump. We have just made a great settlement of the war with Iran. The documents are in pretty final shape, so we'll see. It should be done pretty quickly, end quote. So Trump canceled his plans of attacks just today, Thursday, and threatens to, quote, bomb the SHIT out of Iran if they don't come to an agreement. That's according to Fox. So maybe a little bit colorful languaging, but you can definitely see he wants to come to an agreement here. Now, of course, other facts, this is according to the BBC, the agreement was made with the, quote, highest level of Iranian leadership and was approved, end quote. I don't really know how much leadership they have left, but apparently it's the highest level, according to our administration at the very least. And this deal importantly includes two very important things. First of all, an agreement that Iran will not make a nuclear weapon and will not have a nuclear weapon. And second, the Strait of Hormuz will reopen for trade, which is, of course, enormously important for economic reasons and, of course, for political reasons, because there's a lot of political pressure for this war to be over, which is why it's so important that we're actually getting this done. Now, how real it is? You could raise some speculations. You can raise some objections to this being real. And some understandable ones at that, since the administration has said that this war was over, like, I swear 10 times. But if it is real, it will come at a very, very important time, because this is amid basically all-time lows in approval rating in Iran and just in general the direction that we're taking this country. This is according to Real Clear Politics. Trump's military action against Iran has a 58.3% disapproval rating with only a 38.2% approval rating, along with Trump's job approval only being 40.2%, and the direction of the country, that category, only 33.2% of Americans say that we are going in the right direction as a country. Pretty bad. There's a lot of political pressure here for the President of the United States to end this conflict and to pull out. We don't want this to crater even more so Trump's approval ratings and, of course, the approval ratings of the conflict in general. We don't want these approval ratings to go down because it's 2026 and that means that there are midterms. And we'll be talking about that in a moment. But first of all, I do want to say, here's the issue in this entire conflict of why this is so complicated geopolitically. There are three powers at play. We have America, we have the Israelis, and we have Iran. Okay? America, as I've already outlined, has a very, very real reason, very real political reason to pull out of this war with a matter of urgency. We should get out basically as soon as possible. Hopefully it will happen this weekend in Europe with J.D. Vance signing that. But regardless, we want it to happen as soon as possible. Okay, so that's the American position. The Israeli position is very complicated, so I'll address that in a moment. And of course, Iran's situation is pretty simple. They want to stay in this war because here's the thing, and you can see this from their political messaging. Despite the fact that their navy is gone, their missiles are depleted, their nuclear program is basically done, despite all of that, they still want to get a win out of this, and there's a very real possibility that they could. If you've looked up their political messaging to, especially the larger world, not just to America or whatever, basically they're claiming this as a win because in their eyes, and in the eyes of many countries, America, a first world country, a global superpower, is currently struggling with a third world country like Iran. It's not a good look, frankly. It's not something that, we should be overly proud of, frankly. And so basically their strategy is humiliation. And then following that humiliation, they're going to try to get support from European powers that are sympathetic, European powers that have, kind of disowned America in a way, like France or like the UK, and could potentially support Iran, could support their side. And then also they're looking for support from key allies like Russia or China. China, of course, hasn't been supporting Iran much, at the very least not that we're aware of. And, that could potentially turn around if they believe that they could be benefiting themselves by going into the war. And of course, Russia is a state sponsor of terror, as we basically know. And so they also would like to support us to fight, to support Iran to fight a proxy war against us. But then there's the Israeli situation, I suppose. Israel, many people believe, has the same beliefs as America, but that's simply not the case. They're their own sovereign country with their own sovereign interests, which they have a right to have. However, we need to keep that in mind because our interests here are diverging. See, Israel sees this as a time to basically get support from a president who likes them, while the American public opinion of Israel and of the Israelis in general and their military action is extremely negative. Among Democrats, it's gone. Among independents, it's basically gone. Among Republicans, it's a heavy minority that support them, okay? So they see this as an opportunity to get their goals done in the Middle East. They see this as an opportunity to get money from us. They see this as an opportunity to get military support from us. They see this as an opportunity, ultimately, basically their last chance to get support from America before support of them basically disappears. That's what they see this as. And so they want this war to go basically all of Trump's term. Maybe even outside of Trump's term. They want this war to happen as long as possible because they don't care about the political repercussions because they see the disapproval ratings. They see the ratings of Israel in America and they go, wow, we need to really get something out of America now, not later. Okay? And so that's what we're seeing here. That's what we're seeing with these diverging interests. And it's three powers who are all pulling in different directions, right? Iran wants a clinical war where they win. America wants no war where we pull out and claim victory. And then Israel, pulling completely separately, wants this war to happen forever, no matter the political repercussions. And the political repercussions are very important. They're very important because, let's say this war doesn't end. Let's say that this deal is completely bogus, okay? Because Iran really hasn't acknowledged it necessarily, so we don't really know if it's real. This is breaking news currently, so we don't know. How could this affect the midterms? How could this affect the people's opinion of the Republican Party, maybe even past the midterms into the 2028 presidential election? How could it affect our political outcomes, right? Because here's the thing. The Republican Party is Trump's party. It is, principally. If you look at approval ratings of Trump across, independents, centrists, Democrats, and Republicans, it is still high in Republicans. And according to Fox News, recently it was, I believe, 83%. So it's sitting quite high right now with specifically Republicans. And so clearly there's still support of Trump within the Republican Party, not just the MAGA Republicans, but the larger Republican Party. And so that's a good thing for Trump, but it also shows something that is shown as well by the NBC News report that Trump endorsed 10 candidates in the primaries. You'll remember this. 10 candidates against incumbent Republicans, so Republicans that are coming back to their seat. They were congressmen, and now they're trying to get reelected. He was opposing them in the primaries, and all but 2 of them won. Okay, so not only does the party support him, the candidates and the current voting base, I should say, also supports him, even in some more like controversial states, or even like going against Thomas Massie, who's been, dissing this administration since day one, really. So we can see this is Trump's party. Now, why is that important? As I said, because Trump's approval ratings right now are very much correlated with the war in Iran, among other issues as well. But the important thing that we can see here is that it's Trump's party, and if it's Trump's party, then Trump's approval rating kind of does translate to the Republicans, and it could translate to the midterms. But J.D. Vance, he weighs in on the Iran situation. This is from USA Today. And he kind of points us to how this could potentially not hurt our midterm chances. This is what he says. These are two direct quotes. I feel extremely confident that we are not going to be talking about America's involvement in Iran even a year down the road, but certainly not years down the road, end quote. Now, also, I want to highlight there's important messaging here. He's not even saying America's war in Iran or the Iran war, as I would call it. He's saying America's involvement in Iran, which I think is kind of interesting messaging. But he goes on, I think that we're going to be successful. Fair enough. If this diplomacy falls apart, then the president has further tools at his disposal. But so long as we keep this thing anchored to the core mission, prevent Iran from having a nuclear weapon, it's not going to become a quagmire, end quote. This is where we can see how the Iran war could not affect our midterm chances or even help us in the midterms. Here's the thing. A war in modern day, not historically, but in modern day, a war is judged by how just it is. Now, justice is defined so poorly these days, but in general, it's defined as whether it's a just war. And a just war, it has like three main elements. You need a just cause. In this case, Iran was building nuclear weapons. Pretty good cause, I would say. Not having a state, sponsor of terror have nuclear weapons. Pretty good cause. So we have that. Proportional means, and so basically like proportional to the situation, basically. How severe the situation is, and then you proportionately are severe in your means. And then an achievable end. An achievable end, preferably just end. But what's important here is that it's achievable. This goal is achievable. To stay true to the idea that this war is about, like we've been saying since the 90s, that Trump's been saying since the 90s, that many other, even Democrats have been saying, we can't let Iran have a nuclear weapon. If we stay true to that, then that's how the mission statement doesn't change. The mission purpose doesn't change or shift, right? And we can actually have not only a just cause, but also proportional means that directly relate to an achievable end. If you can't achieve your end, if you are, like, to be honest, it kind of seems like we have been just floundering about, looking for different things. We say, oh, it's about their navy, it's about their missiles, it's about their nuclear enrichment. Even the Warhawks, they say it's about overthrowing this government and putting in a new one that could potentially be more pro-America, or that Israel would want to be more pro-Israel, right? Even so, if we stay principally focused on this one end, we can have proportional means, because the war won't be a forever war. It won't be like Afghanistan or Iraq. It'll be a principled war that was less than a year, that achieved its ends because they were achievable. If you don't even have an achievable end, you can't achieve it. The war can't end, and your means won't be proportional because your means are being used forever, right? So this is the way for Republicans to not just severely lose in the midterms, to stay true to winning issues. I mean, politically, this is huge, right? I mean, in debate club, we can debate with super small issues, super big issues. We can debate winning issues. We can debate losing issues. It doesn't really matter. Who cares? You lose a round, who cares? But this isn't debate club. These are offices. This is real elections. There are real things that you could gain, and there are very, very real consequences to if you lose. Staying principled, however, to certain winning issues rather than getting caught up in a lot of losing issues is how you keep this war just, and how you keep every single political office, really, how you don't get blown out in the midterms like everyone does, and how you, in 2028, could actually win the presidential election instead of getting blown out. That is how we do it. We stay proportional, we stay principled, we stay focused on the goal that we have already really achieved, and also that we can achieve furthermore if this Donald Trump, deal is true and it's actually agreed to. We could have Iran in the future also not have nuclear weapons. If that is our goal, if we state that that is our goal, it will make the war seem and be just. That is how we keep it proportional. That's how we win. That's how we win. We stay focused on principled issues. So thank you for watching. That's all I got, ladies and gentlemen. That is today's suit and tie conservative show. If you want to talk to me at all about any issue or have any suggestions for what I should talk about next, put them in the comments. If you like the video, well, there's a button for that, right? Press the like button, and also subscribe if you want to stay tuned for more conservative takes on the news and for, staying well versed on the news.